Chilli Winters. And that's a strange opening to an episode of a podcast. But I just love how evocative Chilli Winters sounds. And it's the name of a candle company from the Isle of Wight. And if you want to know more, you're going to have to listen. I hope you enjoy this episode. I did. Good morning. Welcome to the David Watson podcast. How are you?
Good morning, David. Thanks for having me on today. I'm really well, thank you. Bit tired because I've been a bit busy, but yeah, all good. Thank you.
Well, you were literally just telling me before we did the introduction about you've just finished a trade show, haven't you?
Yes, we have. So we run a small business called Chilli Winter based on the Isle of Wight, which specialise in home fragrance, candles, reed diffusers, sterling silver jewellery and other gifts. We make everything by hand. Our values are hugely important to us. And we know that as a young business, we need to step up a bit. So we've started shifting our focus from B2C to B2B. So our first huge trade show was in London Olympia called Top Draw, which is an annual event run by Clarion. And it was hugely successful. It was so great to meet journalists, spend time in the press room, to meet buyers and prospects. And actually we met some of our actual stockists face to face for the first time, which was really cool because you get to really engage with people. Seeing them in person, giving them samples. You can't scratch and sniff certain products through a computer screen. So actually being able to show off our products in situ and be there shoulder to shoulder with other brands as well was a fantastic opportunity. And we learned a huge amount. About being in that environment. As I say, the kind of journalist side of things and the interviews go on. We got some fantastic exposure through Clarion and Pressloft. We were on the trend stand. We were in the actual brochure itself. We had a couple of free images of our products there. And it was a really good fun event as well. There was a few beers sunk each evening as well before we went back and did our homework and follow up each evening. But it was great. Really, really great opportunity for us.
I have a bit of a random question, and it's to do with the name Chilli Winter. Right, because it's candles, and one of the things whenever you go into a candle shop, one of the greatest things about candles is you just want to smell them. You want to pick them up, you want to touch. But when I hear the name, when I saw first the name Chilli Winter, that's how I feel about it. It almost reminds me of I'm not sure if it's like a hot drink or a chocolate bar, but I want it. Do you know what I mean? When I first saw Chilli Winter, I was like, I want that.
It really works.
It does.
It's actually, it makes you feel cozy, doesn't it? It makes you think,
I want to taste it.
Oh no, I wouldn't recommend that.
No, but do you know what I mean? It's that kind of capture. I want to smell it, or I want to taste it. I want to.
Yeah, absolutely. The name is sensory, and I think that is quite inspired. But bizarrely, I'll tell you a little bit about the origins of the name Chilli Winter. So I'm Cathy Chilliston, and my life partner and business partner is Dave Winter. And about 5 years ago, we were making rhubarb gin, and we were enjoying a rhubarb gin cocktail with our friends one summer. And it was rhubarb gin, Corsten Press, the apple and rhubarb one, and then topped with Prosecco. And after a few of these, we named it the Chilli Winter. And it kind of grew from there. And I know it might sound as though there's no link, David, but there is a link.
No, it is.
And the link is this. I have always been quite creative, not artistic, but very creative, both in business and in different hobbies and interests I've pursued. But I really wanted a rhubarb candle, and I didn't want rhubarb and ginger, rhubarb and strawberry, rhubarb and custard. There's rhubarb and everything, but not just a plain rhubarb one. So as I say, this is some 5 years ago. So I thought, well, how hard can it be? So I did a lot of research, brought in some materials and started playing around with it. And about a year and a half after that, we had our first stockist. And as I said at the beginning of our conversation before you introduced me to your podcast, I gave up the corporate world and missing both ends of the day with the long commute in my HR career, coming up to 3 years ago. So we're in our third year of trading with Chilli Winter. And it's not just fragrance candles we have now. As I say, we have Dave is also a silversmith. He's a full-time key worker, but he pursues silver jewelry making, and he's a real natural. He's really patient. He's got exceptional close eyesight, and he produces some really elegant and classic designs, which are inspired by our rural environment and coastline on the Isle of Wight here. So that's a little bit about the origins of Chilli Winter and our name that makes you feel all cozy. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend you eat them, David.
No, for sure. But I love how you get a kind of, like you say, you're with some friends. It's a nice environment. You've combined you and your partner's name.
Yeah.
And from a cocktail drink,
Yeah.
And then that turns into like the business of
a hobby enterprise, and now an actual business, which is growing arms and legs.
and I love the way that you take one aspect, like you say, that creativity, that it comes from somewhere else, but it draws you into another place, and you end up with this wonderful name that really does sit very well with the product.
Yeah, it does. It does sit hugely well with the product, and candles is our main business. Dave will be able to take partial retirement in about, I say in about, but 3 years and 10 months counting. We're going to be setting up his jewelry design, making and production in the build up to that, because it's something he really, really enjoys. We're not going to be cheating. So what I mean by cheating is, a lot of jewelry makers create molds and have things cast en masse, and of course that's where the margins are. Of course that's where the profit really comes in. But he does it because he really enjoys it, and making every single piece by hand is something he takes great pride in. So he wants to maintain that and maintain his roots with having original pieces that he makes. So yeah, really looking forward to growing that arm of the business in the coming couple of years.
But also, I mean, with all things, when it comes from the heart and there's a genuine passion that customers can attach to, if it's bespoke, people will buy into it.
Exactly, because everyone wants something a little bit different, not the same as another 20,000 people in the country have probably got one off. Yeah, we all like something that's absolutely unique, having something a little bit different and being able to differentiate ourselves is massively important to our brand, and that actually covers all of our products. The main way that we are able to compete in such a saturated market is through our values, and one of those values, we've got 5 core values, but one of those values is community giving. And I've worked in public sector, not-for-profit, social housing and charitable sector throughout my HR career. And so it's kind of part of my makeup that I give back. And, the community has given to me hand over fist over the years. And I really enjoy contributing to it as well. It gives you a greater sense of purpose, fulfillment and cohesion with your neighbours and your community. So in the first and second lockdown, in fact, throughout the whole of last year, early on in early April, we set about designing a rainbow candle product and variations of, and we also collaborated with a local potter and illustrator to add some complementary products to the collection. So we had just over 12 different products, and they were 100% not-for-profit for our local hospice, which is the Mountbatten Hospice, and they provide care at the local hospice, but also across the community as well. And it's not just helping those who have deteriorating or terminal illnesses, but it's supporting the family as well. So supporting the family in terms of social activities, therapeutic activities, and also bereavement care and counselling as well. And of course, it's something that's relevant to all of us. We all know someone somewhere who has been touched through terminal illness, and it's becoming less taboo. So we talk about end of life care, we talk about those things far more openly than we ever have before. The reason we chose Mountbatten is not just because they are hugely important in our Isle of Wight community, but also because all of their revenue streams with their planned fundraising events were cut due to COVID, and yet their staff, their frontline staff, were under extraordinary pressure to continue to deliver the quality and continuity of patient care and support to relatives and what have you, both within the hospice and across the community. So yeah, in between April and December last year, with our 12 products that were 100% not-for-profit, we raised just over £4,000.
That's good.
And it may not sound like much, but actually as a startup business, that was a huge chunk.
I know.
And we were very, very pleased to be able to give something back to the hospice at a time when they really needed it.
Give me a charity that wouldn't accept £4,000.
Yeah,
that's a large sum of money, and
it is. And if everyone just does a little bit, it all comes together, and it does make a huge impact.
It does.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that sat well with us.
Congratulations. That's a really good effort. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. We really enjoyed it as well. I wouldn't say I would want to make rainbow candles on an ongoing basis. The reason being it's very, very labour intensive, because obviously you have 7 layers of colour that you have to cure before you can pour the next layer, whereas all of our other candles are single pour. So yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted. But it did enable us to really reach out and engage with people, not just on our island, but across the UK. We had more sales actually from customers on the Big Island across the UK than we did on the Isle of Wight.
That's a funny one with the Isle of Wight, isn't it? Because
it is.
You're attached to another island.
Holiday, or they came here on a school trip as a child, or what have you. Somebody, most of us know somebody or have some kind of link or connection to the Isle of Wight. So I think, it helps us raise our profile as well and show this, like, how we do business, not just what we do, but how we do what we do and why we do what we do. So, that's a really good example of how our collaboration, working with other businesses and also community and community giving, is really, really important.
I'm sure, I might be wrong, but I'm sure Isle of Wight is one of the largest providers of garlic for the UK.
Of garlic, yes. Yes, we do have the garlic farm here.
Yeah.
Absolutely delicious. All sorts of garlic pickles and chutneys and butters and what have you. Also really hot for asparagus. And we also have the tomato stall on the Isle of Wight tomato farm and mushroom farms here. We have a valley called the Arison Valley, which is extremely sandy loam. Very, very fertile, and alongside tourism, farming is one of our main industries.
Yeah, people don't realise that one of the Isle of Wight's, technically the Isle of Wight's biggest export is its farming.
That's right, absolutely. Yeah, not its buckets and spades.
No. How was it then during the pandemic and stuff? How was that being in lockdown in the Isle of Wight?
I think most communities obviously struggled. I think from a commercial point of view, we've only got a finite resource in terms of the labour market and in terms of available market and competition. Hospitality and catering, and obviously, hotels, B&Bs and what have you. It was an immensely challenging time for them, as it has been across the country. But particularly in this kind of environment. In terms of farming, actually nothing changed massively. There were still labour market challenges with those who were poorly, a bit just as there are those challenges now with the pandemic still in terms of business continuity. But I did feel that people really pulled together. And for me, growing up in the 70s, I'm giving my age away there. But for us living in Cowes, we had a WhatsApp group in the road that we set up right from the get-go so that we could all look out for each other. People who were teachers in the road could help those who had young kids and, they'd never home educated before and they needed some help with that, whether it was shopping or sourdough recipes. There was a real spirit so that, when we came out and clapped and cheered on a Thursday evening, or on VE Day, actually, there was a few bottles of wine sunk in the streets, socially distanced. But yeah, that sense of community is still there for us here in Cowes. That WhatsApp group is still going, which is lovely. I think people there have been a lot of challenges, yes. I think people have been a bit more resourceful in terms of how they entertain themselves with everything being shut, how they engage with one another and their families, their loved ones through digital technology, through Zoom and what have you. But there's been a greater sense of identity and togetherness as well, even though it's been a really difficult time. People have pulled together. But that's just my personal experience. I appreciate, some people, there's been no change for them. My partner Dave, he's a key worker and he carried on going to work throughout.
Yeah, so did I, because I work in care as well. So my full-time job is
Yeah,
in care. So
yeah.
I never noticed a single difference. The only difference I noticed was the roads were I just got to work in fly-in time.
Yeah, exactly. No traffic issues.
No,
And now we're sort of, creeping back to some sort of normality. It's absolute chaos
I
out
had
there. Everyone's struggling to get petrol at the
yeah,
moment, apparently.
I had lunch with a friend yesterday, and I met his wife for the first time, and we were talking that during the pandemic, him and I were doing 36-hour shifts together, and
Yeah.
he and I were talking to, and his wife was working from home and was at home with the two daughters, and they were in complete lockdown bubble. And
Yeah.
my friend Cindy and I were talking about how we just did not understand what this bubble meant to some people, because him and I weren't in a bubble, and because you were the one that was going to work and doing long shifts and all of that, we were also the ones doing the shopping. So we would go, and of
Yeah.
course my sister was in a bubble, so I did my sister's shopping. There was a couple of elderly neighbours, so I'd check in and do they need anything? You could just leave on the doorstep or
Yeah.
at the end of the gate. So, so you're picking up prescriptions. You know what I mean? I'm going about my daily life like nothing's changed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And
then,
this is it for some people, nothing's changed. But,
yeah,
like many, you also see, I'm I don't know about you, but I also noticed that some people were also potentially far more vulnerable in our immediate community. Perhaps live alone, normally see family or friends once, twice, or three times a week, or once, twice, three times a month, but all of a sudden that being severed,
yeah.
maybe not having access to
Oh, it was
or the
terrible.
willingness
Yeah,
to access technology to communicate. And so there has been that vulnerability open up. So whether it's picking up a prescription or dropping, a
yeah,
bag of groceries at the end of the garage or whatever,
yeah,
those things I think have really been lifelines to some individual.
yeah,
We're creatures of habit, aren't we, David? So whatever our normal has been, it's been normal for a reason. And of course, there's massive variation in whatever normal looks like. But just before COVID, there was an appetite for talking about mental health and mental ill health far more openly. And I think, in terms of work-life balance and work flexibility, the world of work has changed massively. And again, what is flexible and what is healthy and what is normal has changed in the world of work for most sectors. For some, nothing's changed at all.
yeah.
But also in terms of mental health, people are far more open. Things have changed perhaps for the better. I think some of the conversations about mental health and mental ill health, and some of the conversations we've had about flexible working and work-life integration have also been accelerated because of COVID. And I don't think either of those things have
I
been a bad
think I've noticed a slight division in that
Oh,
is
a slight what? Sorry.
division where people are starting to
Yeah,
divide because
yeah,
you're seeing it with transport workers at the moment. And when you start talking, funnily enough, before this all kicked off, I was having a conversation with, or sorry, my brother was having a conversation with the guy that delivered oil to us. And he was
mm.
saying he recently had left the HGV petroleum business because he was getting more money doing online deliveries with Ocado
I know.
because of online shopping. And he said,
Yeah,
and he then got a phone call off, I won't mention the oil company's name that deliver oil.
no,
Um, and they were just like, oh, we need you, can you come back? We need drivers because he's obviously got a license. And he's like, yeah, but I get paid this much for working. I'm sure he said Ocado, right? But I could be wrong, but it's the online shopping deliveries. He said,
yeah,
so he said, I get more money for them. And they're like, well, how much will it cost you to come back? He went, oh, this much. They went, okay, we'll pay you. And he said he was telling my brother, he said, there's no shortage of lorry drivers. It's pay and conditions. He said, I
yeah.
could
It
earn, he
has
said,
been.
well, but he was also saying is the retirements. He said, people, it's not a glamorous job.
No,
It is a
not at all.
specialist job. And
Mm.
when the wages plummet, and I can get, and he said, and with the pandemic, he said there was the demand in online shopping created a demand for delivery drivers. He says,
It did. Mm.
and he said, and that hasn't died off yet. And he said it was something like 1,000% increase, and
Yeah,
supermarkets were willing to pay the wages.
they have to. Yeah,
Yeah,
again, they're all competing with each other, and they've done
there's,
very, very well
and he said,
in the pandemic.
this is it. And he said this, and he said with people retiring, and licensed places were closed, so you couldn't do the driver training and all of that. He says HGV drivers were in demand, and we went
Mm.
to the highest bidders. And
They absolutely did. They actually had some leverage for a change
yeah,
in the negotiations. Good for them.
mm,
'Cause as you say, it's
and
not a glamorous job. There hasn't really been the recognition of what that means to your health, to your social life or lack of, and
yeah,
very long hours working as well. And just to add to your observation there about that division, our business is actually based from our home. We've got a very large workshop at the bottom
yeah,
of the garden. So all of our shipping of materials comes in here and also goes out from here. And we've actually noticed quite a lot of churn. What I mean by that is staff turnover with different logistics
yeah,
companies.
yeah.
So they are up to every single one we've spoken to in about the last year and a half or so. They're absolutely up to their eyes in deliveries. And you see rental vans at the back of the post office collecting surplus because, as you say, things have gone up by, in some
It's like
cases,
a thousand
by over
percent.
1,000%.
Yeah, it's quite
But
ridiculous.
equally, they can't work at that level of intensity, 6 days a week, doing sort of 12, 14-hour day without a lunch break in the heat and so on and so forth.
This is it.
And the pressure is really, really on. So I think, yes, some businesses and some sectors have done really, really well during the pandemic. That's fantastic for them. But I think with that fast demand and fast growth comes a lot of issues and bumps and scrapes which need ironing out now, because it's not sustainable for them or their staff to continue in that way on an
No.
ongoing basis.
And the other area where I see the division, and this would apply to your partner as well, and myself, and shop workers and stuff like that, is as the frontline care staff. We didn't furlough.
Mm.
So we're kind of caught between this rock and a hard place where, like I said, and this is just my own experience of when I then started talking to people when the lockdowns ended and people started coming out of furlough. Oh, and they're like, oh, but there was this, is this like, no. There was a part of the country, probably as much as 50% of the country, we carried on. We were never
Yeah.
furloughed. We were never in a bubble. We carried on working like there was no national health crisis, like there was no pandemic. And you've got these two different people based on their experience. And I'm fascinated to see how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I still keep my hand in the HR side of stuff, and I've got
Yeah.
some clients that have services in the care sector, some private and some not. And you're absolutely right. So I have got that insight of having worked
Yeah.
in supported housing and also elderly care as well with clients where, yeah, business continuity is really, really tough, especially in small teams where perhaps the residents' expectations and needs and perhaps also deteriorating health, memory and concentration is really, really hard to juggle whilst you're practically wearing a hazmat suit to just deliver their cup of tea.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy.
Or personal care. So, there's been a lot of fear as well. And, highly charged staff working in an environment where the procedures in terms of hygiene and safety are changing practically daily. And at times there's staff shortages, which there always were anyway before COVID. And then that just manifested and all of those issues compounded over that period of time. So what we now have is many people who are frontline workers, and I mean those within the care environment, whether that's hospitals or homes or sheltered housing, and so on. They are burnt out. There is a real definition of burnout because it is all consuming, that kind of contribution in your job. It takes up your emotional energy, your mental energy. It's not just a physical burnout at all that we used to associate in the 1980s as yuppie flu. This is true.
I remember that.
Yeah, you do remember that. Oh, good. You got good eye cream there, David.
Well, just for the record, I'm 47 today.
Thing. Burnout is a real thing, and we've still got a long winter ahead of us. We've got a long way to go to get through things. And for us as a business, people are talking about Christmas already with Chilli Winter business, and across retail full stop. I mean, we're actually currently planning for next summer at the moment because that's the cycles of retail, which seems a bit bizarre, but that's how it
Yeah,
is.
it is.
But of course, consumers are now starting to think about, oh, autumn's here, Christmas is coming. But the supply chain issues that were created through COVID and compounded by Brexit are still there. There's containers and container ships stuck in ports for 2 or 3 months full of Christmas stuff that isn't probably going to arrive in the UK until January, February. Now, those are all largely destined for larger businesses. So there is a lot of pressure on those larger businesses to try and iron out some of those import issues that remain. But for smaller businesses, for shopping local, for made local and handmade, it's a great opportunity as well, which is actually what we need to do across the country to rebuild our economy, is be more resourceful with our local community,
I
local
know.
businesses.
Talking to a couple of building suppliers during the summer, they said the pandemic caused them massive problems because
Yeah.
they said even though they get most of the stuff from the continent, they said Brexit didn't affect that. They said what affected it is when all of these countries went into lockdown. He said they shut down the factories that produce lime, produce cement, produce he said the logging
timber.
Yeah, he said the logging industry in Scandinavia, the largest exporter in the world, certainly to Europe and Great Britain. They said they just shut down.
Yeah. So again, it's basic economics of supply and demand, which means material costs have gone through the roof. And for us, we've had to be a bit more resourceful. We've had quite a few bumps with our supply chain, and we've had to build in several contingencies with some of our materials. And we are now really thankful and proud that all of our materials are now sourced within the UK, which is superb.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean there aren't problems, there are. But also the material cost has gone up, which, because we're not yet in a position where we feel we can readily pass that on to our customers or resellers, we've swallowed that for now with, it's taken a hit on our margins. But some of our material costs have gone up by sort of 30-35%. Which is really tough when you're trying to grow a business. There hasn't been government support for us at all during this time because of when we started up, because we don't have retail premises and we're not paying business rates. We're one of the 3.2 million small businesses in the UK who hasn't had that helping hand.
Well, you can imagine as a care worker who worked double the hours to now be told, I've got to help with the tax bill. Really?
Yeah, right.
Thank you. Well, really appreciate that.
Yeah, I know. And you're not getting a pay rise, you're getting a pay freeze.
Right, it's just I know. It's a gift that keeps on giving.
It's a gift that keeps squeezed. We shouldn't probably go too political here, David, as I might speak out of turn.
Yeah, I'll be fair to everybody. I think regardless of who was in charge, if you look around the world, they've all pretty much followed the same model.
Yeah.
And you can argue they all got it right or they all got it wrong.
They did what they had to, and they did their best.
And I think any criticism can only be done in hindsight. And we're all smart as the next person in hindsight, aren't we? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. We've got to get on with it anyway. Can't change what's happened, but we can change the next steps.
In hindsight, I'm a genius level at everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. So, we are really looking forward to the future. There has been one thing we have been eligible for, which has been the Kickstart scheme. And we're just going through a process at the moment, hopefully to recruit somebody to help us for a short-term period of time. And I'm really, really excited about that because, again, showing our values and also using my HR background, I'm really, really invested in helping a young person develop their skills, their knowledge, their confidence, and whether they stay with us in the longer term or whether they move on. Young people have had a really rough time of it these last few years, full stop. And with cost of living rising, the fact that they can't live off the bank of mum and dad forever, and eventually they're going to need to lay down a deposit and build their own home and future, I think we should be helping one another, and I think we should be helping the next generation enter the job market and build and form a life for themselves. So I'm really looking forward to helping a young person, even if it is for a short period of time. It depends on just how, the longevity of that opportunity will just depend on our affordability and our cash flow.
But I do think one of the things that has been overlooked essentially for quite a few years now is for the youth is I have this kind of cynicism about, and I call it Pinterest sunset quotes. Right, and it is a cynicism, because we can all be guilty of staring at Pinterest and dreaming, and actually there's a reality to running your own business, and there's a reality to startups, and there's a reality to working, that I think you mentioned the 70s. Like I said, I'm actually 47 today. It's my birthday today. I'm 47, right? So
Happy birthday,
thank you.
David.
So, and the same as our mutual friend Zoe Palmer.
Yes. Yes, it is her birthday today. Yeah.
So, so our reality growing up was very different.
Yeah.
We grew up in one of the worst recessions of the decade of that century. Do you know what I mean? And unemployment was sky high. So we kind of, there was no internet. It didn't exist. There was no social media. You had a job centre, do you know what I mean? And you had a bus pass if you were lucky. And we had a library. That was our resources. And so we have a very different mentality to the hardship of getting on the property ladder to starting work. And it was very much, and I'm not saying it was right or better, but there was no sympathy. If you wanted something, you had to go and get it. And if you fell over and life didn't turn out as well as you'd hoped, you would just say, "Oh, that's life, mate." So pick yourself up.
Crack on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not saying it was the correct way. I'm not saying it was better. I'm just saying that was the environment that we grew up in.
It was a different time.
Yeah. And I think there was a benefit to that, like you say, with startups, to be able to help young people say, no, this is what you have to do.
Yeah. This is what you put in order to get out.
Yeah. Exactly that. And like you said, this is your third year, you said, isn't it?
Yeah, where we've been trading for coming up to 2.5 years this month. And so this is our third year trading. It's quite tough setting up anyway, as you know. And in the environment we have to be massively flexible and responsive and opportunistic, which we have been and we will continue to be, to ensure that we are competing and we are successful. But it's not without its lessons learned. It's really hard work, really, really hard work. And it is round the clock. It is working 7 days a week. But I would say I play 7 days a week too, because there's so much pleasure in working for yourself, because you can call the shots, because you are getting out of bed for yourself. You're driving yourself all the time. You're problem solving creatively all the time. You're building new relationships. You're then cultivating and deepening those relationships, whether that's with your customers or whether that's with your resellers or with your supply chain. So there's a huge amount of learning along the way, but there's a huge amount of support as well. And I think it's so important as a young business to, no matter how long in the tooth you are or not, or experienced you are or not, is to have a bit of humility and to ask for help. And if I hadn't asked for help from all of the experts that we have drawn in the last sort of year, 18 months, then we wouldn't be where we are today, with actually quite an optimistic outlook and a positive approach and a clear strategy about what's coming in the next couple of years and beyond that. Having that humility to learn from your mistakes and to say, I need help, I don't know how to do this. I'm quite a proud person. Dave and I are actually both very stubborn and independent people, so it's not natural for us to necessarily ask for help, but we've had to learn how to do that, and it's okay to. If anything, I wish we'd done it just slightly sooner than we did, but hey, never mind, we are where we are. Again, that's that hindsight gem, isn't it, David?
So earlier when we were talking, you mentioned you just come from one trade show, and you said you've got a little bit of respite, and by respite that means now prep and work your ass off for the next set, which is in November. Did you say?
We've got a large show at Newbury Showground at the end of the first weekend in November, which is our first Christmas B2C event. We've got a number of other smaller community events dotted around the South Coast. And then we're building up for BBC Countryfile in the park in Wiltshire in
Nice.
mid-December, which is a 3-day event. So we were recently invited by them just over a month ago to join them with, I think there's a cap of 200 traders in a massive countryside estate in South Gloucestershire, North Wiltshire area. So we'll be up there for a day setting up, and then it's 3 days, exclusive ticketed event, and the TV cameras and shows. There'll be demonstrations there. There's like a food hall where families can get in and do stuff. So there's something for everyone, whatever
That
your
sounds
age,
great.
or what have you, whatever your interest. Yes, there's the shopping event, and of course there'll be mulled wine, and there'll be music, and there'll be the TV stuff going on. But there'll be plenty of demonstrations and things that people can actually roll up their sleeves and literally get their hands dirty in the woods, and really looking forward to that, because we're huge fans of Country File. Good old I think we were both old before our time. I've enjoyed Country File followed by Antiques Roadshow on a Sunday night for about the last 30 years.
To be fair, we were limited. Well, to be fair,
younger than you.
we remember being limited to 3 channels, so we didn't have many choices.
Oh, that was the black and white days, though, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
It was
black and white telly.
So one of the things you mentioned there, and I just want to highlight this to people, because you said about I'm sure there's going to be some mulled wine and some songs and things, but you also mentioned it's a 3-day event, and you go the day before to set up, so you're probably going to pack up the day after, so that becomes 5 days, doesn't it?
Well, coming from the Isle of Wight,
yeah,
we've got it nailed in terms of the project planning side of it, and we have to plan the detail, less the big stuff, way in advance to make sure everything goes smoothly. So we go up the day before to set everything up, and actually on setting down takes a fraction of the time. So setting down from an event, like Top Drawer, for example, in London, it took us just shy of 6 hours once we had arrived to set up our exhibition stand. It took us just less than an hour to set down from it. So we're actually going to be hot footing it back to the Isle of Wight on the final day, that finishes around about 6 o'clock, I think it is, on the 12th of December up in Wiltshire for that BBC event. But then again, who knows? We might be having a conversation with John Craven or Ellie.
Yeah.
We might be selling Ellie a candle.
This is it. Oh, she looks like somebody's up for a candle.
I reckon. Yeah, we'll be the crazy people waving in the background at the TV cameras and walking past with a product.
Because one of the things that fascinates me about candles anyway, because I do have, as I look around, I can see 3 different types of candle in my office. Right.
Oh, we're friends then, aren't we?
Well,
you can never have enough.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? I do like candles. I think it's one of the best air fresheners you can have. Do you know what I mean? It's just
definitely
scented candles. I mean, so. But one of the things I'm always fascinated about people who do seasonal things like candles and stuff like that. When do you have to start prepping for Christmas?
Well, I've got just over 1,000 already made of our Christmas stock. We, after London, we also sold several thousand Christmas stock, because retailers need to plan too. We started, as I say, the retail cycles, manufacturing cycles for retail go in cycles. So we're currently planning next summer, which may seem just bizarre to your listeners, but that's how it works. I know that quite a lot of retailers stick, Christmas stuff on the shelves before the kids have even gone back to school, which seems a bit daft, and it actually perhaps alienates some consumers potentially. And a lot of people don't want to even think about Christmas until Halloween or Guy Fawkes is out of the way. But Christmas means different things to different people. I'm actually not a massive fan of Christmas and Christmas Day itself. Dave's a key worker. He often works on Christmas Day. So for me, life's for living, and you grab your moments. You celebrate what you can celebrate when you have the opportunity to, and when you're in the mood to, rather than the date on the calendar.
But do you know that you know that excitement and that buzz that people get around December?
I love that. I love the build up.
Yeah, but how do you? So you've got to be thinking about a Christmas candle range, say.
Yeah.
In what, June, July? I mean, I don't mean the making. I mean, like when you sit down, like, right, how are we planning for November, December? The range, the seasonal side.
It's usually late spring, and then have it all sewn up design wise by the summer, so that you're
Yeah.
making in advance.
So
So
that's what I
it's
mean.
purely
How
nothing
do you
time.
get into the mentality of the excitement of Christmas? So there's a little thing here. So I have this thing to get me into Christmas. In and around the 1st of December, I will watch the 1984, I think it's George C. Clarke version of Scrooge, the Christmas Carol, right?
Okay.
And I watch it every year, right? The minute that starts, at sometime around the 1st of December, right? I then like, okay, Christmas can happen now. I'm in the mood for
Yeah.
Christmas, and
Yeah.
I
A
can't
bit
do
of
it in
Michael
no.
Bublé.
Yeah, just something. So I can't do
Yeah.
that in November, in
No.
October. No, it waits until December. And
Yeah, and I think, for me, it's almost in a way about compartmentalizing things, because obviously we make and we sell products that are really popular at Christmas,
yeah,
but from a business perspective, we have to plan for that. So it's just business, and it's just a product as such. And we have a vision for how that might look and feel from a sensory perspective, how it might smell, how it that kind of cozy feel that people look for and really enjoy at Christmas, ourselves included. But in a way, I think we sort of keep ourselves a little bit emotionally detached when it's summertime. It's so hard to really immerse yourself in all things
this is what I'm
Christmas
saying.
when you're designing something in spring and summertime, and having photo shoots for it at that time of year. Trying to find props that are relevant at that time of year just seems a bit bizarre. But then actually, for me as a consumer myself, and Dave's the same, as I say, quite often he's working on Christmas Day, and the days before and afterwards he has to take his turn, as do many people. And it's not all about the 25th of December. It's actually about the whole spirit of it over several weeks.
But that's got to be the
And
advantage of
and I
candles,
think
hasn't
if
it?
you build up too much pressure and expectation for one day, you're probably going to be pretty disappointed. So actually, it's about when by the time we get to December, all of the planning and all of that has all happened. So actually, we do kind of get to a point where you get to about probably the 15th, between the 15th and the 18th of December, where if people actually haven't bought their products from us yet, they probably aren't going to. So we get a chance to sort of just sit back and relax a little bit, and as consumers ourselves, just soak up the atmosphere. I'm not someone who walks around on Christmas Eve looking a bit dazed in a high street, like
No.
some people have been, all genders have been known to. And I'm a planner, so for me personally, I for my friends, for my family, if I have an idea or I see something that inspires me, I get it there and then, and I put it in a cupboard.
Yeah.
And then round about late October, I have to think about, I should probably have a look in that cupboard and see where I've got to with, the people I'd like to gift this Christmas. And the same with many people. Our kids grown up. We've both got previous lives, me and Dave, but our kids are grown up. Most of our friends' kids are sort of growing up or nearly grown up. We tend not to buy each other things these days, and it's been that way for a good probably 5 years or so now.
Yeah.
We tend to spend time with our loved ones doing something we enjoy and creating a memory. We're not particularly into materialistic things. So Dave and I set a really small budget for each other, and it needs to just be fun, because actually we're going on holiday in January, and that to us is our gift to each other, and that will be our break and our Christmas, because we'll be making memories together, doing something we both really enjoy. So for us, it's not about having a re-gifted present or an ornament that we don't really like that's probably going to gather dust somewhere. Or another bottle of perfume that we don't quite
you're right,
like. You don't need stuff, do you? You don't need to surround yourself with stuff. You need to.
It's funny you say that. Yeah.
Many people like to just keep things quite simple and have a happy time and share memories and share laughter and share a bottle of wine.
The reason I'm kind of chuckling is because yesterday when I was at my friend's house for lunch, and I met his wife for the first time, and my mum was with me. Do you know what I mean? Because him and I worked together, and he said, "It'd be nice to."
Yeah.
And anyway, towards we'd had lunch and everything. He said, "Oh, do you want pudding?" I was like, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, you need to, because we've made you a birthday cake." Yeah, and I was just like,
so sweet.
Exactly. That was like this is the best present I've had.
Thoughtful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like you say, you could not have bought me that.
No.
The fact they
The fact that it
thought,
was a surprise, they
yeah,
thought about it in advance and they actually followed it through. That's
yeah, and
really
it
kind
turned
and
out it wasn't
thoughtful.
a bought cake. They'd made me a cake,
Yeah.
and I was just like, I was about to swear. Then I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. You know what I mean? This
Did they
is
put 47 candles on it just to
no,
wind you up?
no. We skipped the candles, but that thing, like you're saying, the gesture, like you
Yeah.
say, is you get to a point, like you're saying, like with you and Dave, you get to a point where that holiday is far more important than
Yes.
some object that. Oh yeah, great.
Yeah.
You know, a little budget for Christmas so that we are actually making the effort, which is
Yeah, exactly. Doing
sentimental.
something thoughtful, but nothing like serious because,
No,
there's
because
kind
the
of no need
holiday,
to do that.
the
Yeah.
event,
Why just accumulate materialistic stuff
yeah,
when,
when you can have a memory,
yeah, yeah. We're
and
going
that's what I.
skiing actually. Can't wait.
Yeah, it's just what I mean. That's a much better time. Kind of, it's amazing what becomes more valuable to you, doesn't it?
It does shift. I think it started to shift during my late 30s. And yeah, the last sort of 10 years or so, the emphasis on what actually drives my sense of happiness and fulfillment has really shifted. And going back to a comment you made about how it was for us growing up, and living through probably one of the worst recessions of the century, probably both, we're roughly the same age. So our parents are kind of that generation and ilk of the final salary pension scheme, low
Yeah,
property prices. They capitalized on that, job for life, and the world of work right now is again just so different. And I think there used to be so much status and identity. People would place and try and form an identity based on their material possessions in previous generations. And it's something I've witnessed time and again with my peers and their family and their parents and what have you growing up. And during my 30s, I just thought, do you know what? It's not important to me to have a massive house. It's not important to me to have a flashy car. What's the point in having that if I can't then travel the world and see X, Y, and Z, and
absolutely.
experience things, not have things and gather things and have a loft full of stuff I don't know what to do with after a couple of decades. I'd just rather have a really amazing experience and hold on to
I
that. That's what makes
I was
me
thinking about
tick.
that the very thing today. Obviously, I was a bit sort of nostalgic because it's my birthday, and I moved back into my mum's house when I was 30 after living. I
Yeah.
left home at 18, came back sort of temporarily when I was 30, and never moved out. But I then looked at
Did you kick Sam out?
no, yeah. But I started thinking I've surfed on 3 different continents now. I think it was like I can't remember how many different countries I've surfed in.
Wow,
Um,
you're a surfer.
yeah, so like I normally go surfing every September with my friend Duncan, and
Nice.
I sat there just thinking about this the other day, today, how many places I've been because, like you say, I stopped chasing the big house, and I
Yeah.
swapped it for doing things.
Do you know we've got a common interest there, David? I taught myself to surf when I was about 32. I'm now 45, and longboarding.
That's what I
And
do. I've got a 10-foot longboard.
oh, I've got loads of longboards. It's just, yeah, it's so incredible. Whether you're a bit wired or whether you're hungover, whatever the weather, getting in the water and having a paddle and catching a ride, it's just
Yeah,
amazing feeling. And before Dave and I met, we've been together 6 years now, but before then, um, my daughter's almost 20 now, but before Dave and I met, she used to spend one Christmas with her dad and one Christmas with me, and it would alternate. And I wasn't feeling sorry for myself. I'd kind of got over that as the years went on. But one Christmas, I said to myself, do you know what? This Christmas, I'm going to go on a surfing holiday. And some of my friends were like, you're so having a midlife crisis. And I'm like, I'm
yeah.
so
Mine was a
not.
midlife crisis for
I
definite.
just really like surfing. And why do I just want to spend Christmas, on the Isle of Wight? And it's a bit chilly and a bit damp when I could go to Morocco.
I've done
So
Morocco.
I went to Morocco for
I went to
Christmas.
Tagazout.
Yeah, I stayed near there, really near
Yeah,
them.
on a
We went
surf camp.
down to there was an amazing Point Break at Imswan further down
Yeah,
the coast.
yeah.
I don't know if you
That's
went.
I
Have
did that. I
you?
done that Point Break all the
Oh,
way to the beach.
it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's about a
just
two minute ride. It's
off the
about a
harbour
two
wall,
minute
off the
ride.
harbour
It's
wall.
amazing.
Yeah,
And a really short walk to then get back and paddle back
Yeah, I
out
did.
again.
I did it. I was really lucky on that day. There was a nice light longboard wave coming in. It wasn't too
Yeah,
hectic, and
not too crowded.
no, it wasn't. It was a little bit crowded because people wanted the cleaner wave, and I was
Yeah,
just like, do you know what? I'll stay by the wall and take the white water because it reformed.
yeah.
And
They all reformed.
I
It was
see,
amazing.
and I paddled, got it, and yeah, I managed to stay on the wave. I had to pump a couple of times, but I managed to stay on the wave all the way to the beach. And I was just like,
Nice.
I am a surfing god. This is
Oh, I
brilliant.
know, I know,
But you
I
saying
know.
that about midlife crisis, right? I was, it was 7 years ago because went to Fuerteventura and I had my longboard with me. And thank you to EasyJet for damaging my longboard. Um,
Oh,
and I was stood in the queue at Gatwick and we were getting a plane to Fuerteventura, me and my mate Duncan. And you can imagine two guys with 10-foot longboards in a very packed queue. The baggage
yeah.
and everything broke down, right? And we're taking up basically 20 foot of space in this queue. And I'm stood there and there's this little kid and he looks at his mum and he goes, Mummy, what's that? And she just looked and I went, what's in that? And he went, yeah. I went, that's my midlife crisis. And fair to the crowd, they all laughed and the mum said that's
Yeah.
the best response I could have heard. But
Thing is, I don't think I'm ever going to grow up, and Dave feels the same way. And he's 5 years older than me. I think I think you can age before your time if you stop pursuing things
yeah,
that make you tick and things that make your heart thump. And I've always enjoyed sport. I used to do a lot of mountain biking. Used to compete. Always been into sport, whether it's cycling or badminton or swimming. And I'd always wanted to try surfing, and I had thought I'm probably the wrong side of 30 to be starting this. And all of those thoughts went through my head about, people will judge me, people will think this, people will think that. And I thought, at the end of the day, I'm not living my life to please everyone
yeah.
else. I'm living my life to be my best life, and I'm going to give it a go because it looks really good fun. And it was really good fun, and it was really hard work learning. And I also did a lot of volunteering that involved surfing with a couple of different surf schools. That was hugely important as well, like trying to help young people build their communication and confidence through a water-based activity, just splashing around in the white
Yeah.
water. But it was, again, like giving back, that community giving and inspiring a young person to give something a try. And it doesn't matter if you fall off and look like a
It doesn't.
wally. It just doesn't matter. The whole point is have fun. And just because you hit 30 or 40 or 50, why stop having fun?
Because that's it. I mean, when I started surfing, it was probably only about 10 years ago. I was the same. I was like, do you know what? I'm the wrong age, the wrong height, wrong size. This should be good for a giggle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you just take it. Right. Before, because we both need to finish up, I know. I want to just quickly, how did you get from a cocktail to a rhubarb candle
Yeah.
to Chilli Winter?
Well, the cocktail was named Chilli Winter
Yeah.
because we'd had a few too many gins. And I wanted a rhubarb candle. I wanted just rhubarb, not all of the rhubarb and everything else to tart it up.
But how do you even? But a rhubarb candle. It's just like the most random scented candle you could want.
Yeah, probably. But I just love rhubarb. I love all things rhubarb. I love the flavour, the texture. I love the colour of it. I think it's a beautiful plant to grow in a garden or an allotment. It's so architectural and it's delicious. And it reminds me of old days, like being on my granddad's allotment when I was a kid. And so rhubarb is, I think, it's a Marmite thing. You either love it or you hate it.
There's rhubarb grown behind me.
Yeah, absolutely love it. And so I just thought I want a rhubarb candle so much, not rhubarb and custard or rhubarb and ginger or rhubarb and blackberry. I just thought, well, how hard can it be? So I set about learning. I made a lot of mistakes while I was learning how to make candles because it's actually not quite as simple as, measure that, pour that, mix that. There's a huge amount of science that goes into it, and there's a lot of compliance in terms of labeling and safety. Because of allergens, even naturally occurring essential oils have allergens, for example. So, we're really, really squeaky clean on all of the testing and quality side of stuff and all of the labeling. Without that, we wouldn't have a business. And I also wouldn't be able to sleep well at night, because if we had,
Yeah.
you know, something went wrong for somebody and we hadn't done our bit to prevent that or minimize that, then, you know, I would be absolutely devastated. So it's taken years to find the right materials, source the right materials, be happy with them, test them extensively, to come up with the product range
But
that we do have.
how did you go from, you obviously nailed the rhubarb candle.
Yeah.
How did that then turn into, actually, I want to make this a
Somebody
business?
said to me, somebody said, oh, do you do any others? I'd love a sage and sea salt. And I thought, oh yeah, that'd be nice. Something quite mellow, something, you know, warmer, more
Yeah.
perhaps versatile as a fragrance to suit other rooms. And I just really enjoyed experimenting and playing around with it creatively, and I think intellectually from a business point of view. I was definitely on my route to burnout, commuting.
Yeah.
I was head of HR for a charity based in Southampton, covering Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. And I was, you know, getting up at stupid o'clock to get the first red jet of the day. If it was working, if the tide and the mechanical failures weren't all facing in the wrong direction. Most days it would, you know, there'd be a problem with the commute in one direction or the other. And I just thought, you know what? Living life just to get washing on a Friday night and sort of feel like you're collapsing over the weekend to clean the house and get the shopping in, only to do it all over again. You know, when you're working at that level, you've got to walk the talk if you're an HR and you're specialising in engagement
Yeah.
and well-being. And what is the point in me compromising my own physical and mental health? Because I'm not actually walking the talk. I'm simply following, you know, I suppose a choice that I've made for myself, but actually one that doesn't keep me fulfilled. So things were growing. We had about 12 stockists at the time when I decided to call it a day with my employer. And I worked my 12 weeks notice and I took the plunge. And I think I'd spent so many years toying with the idea of working for myself from an HR perspective, not with Chilli Winter. Chilli Winter just emerged, it just evolved. And
I
as I
love
say,
I love the way that evolved from curiosity.
yeah,
Do
just
you know what I mean?
curiosity.
Yeah, just
And do you know
well,
what though, David? This time last year, I'd say I was probably working 70% of the time on my HR consultancy and 30% Chilli Winter. But I'd say it's now 80-20 the other way around. And everything I've learned in the corporate world as an HR business partner, as a head of HR, you know, you work in the financial
yeah,
realms, you understand supply chains, you understand quality, you understand engagement and business growth and business development. And there's been a huge amount I've been able to apply from that experience over 25 years and bring it into what we do so that we've got really clear foundations. So some of the help that we've drawn in is where perhaps I've needed some coaching, I've needed some support in shaping up our strategy because some of our goals haven't been clear because we just evolved and it grew arms and legs. Actually, it looks a bit woolly. And in order to actually have a viable and sustainable business, you need to add a bit more structure than that and give it a bit more thought. So having some external coaching, having some experts come in to help us design some of that with us was massively helpful. But there's still learning every day. Bizarrely, I actually started in retail. So I'm actually going back to my roots as such. But even if I'm delivering, you know, if I'm delivering mental health training, so I'm a mental health first aid England instructor, if I'm delivering that, I put my heart and soul into it. And, you know, that's quite an emotive topic. There's some really heavy subjects that you discuss and explore with people you don't know and necessarily trust, and they're placing huge trust and faith in you. So once I've, you know, finished, say, a 2-day course, discussing really heavy topics like depression, like suicide, things like that, I'm quite tired afterwards because I've been looking after the welfare and vulnerability of every single participant.
because obviously
And
we were going
afterwards, I sort of book in my diary time to just build stock and make stock, because I can just put the music on and my brain just disappears when I'm making stock. All of that stress and pressure, all of that even though that's planned and it's willing, and I'm very happy and fulfilled to be delivering mental health training, you still got to find ways and times to look after yourself and take care of yourself properly. So I literally diarise time between things that are very intellectually and emotionally demanding to, the other end of the spectrum, which is hugely cathartic and relaxing for me. So it is a happy balance. It's a happy balance running both businesses.
Well, because I was going to say, because initially when we spoke and we were on emails, we were going to talk about both subjects, but we really dived into and got distracted. So hopefully, if you're up for it, we can do another podcast on the mental health and the HR side.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Because
there is an overlap. Obviously, the whole purpose of lighting a candle, whether it's scented or not, is that, you light it, the flame, the light flickering, it calms your mood, it sets a mood, it gives you a cozy feel, it helps you along the way if it's an aspirational mood that you're looking to set, as opposed to one you actually have now. And we can do that in the morning. It doesn't have to be in the evening in the winter that we enjoy that. It can be while we're enjoying a bath in the middle of the summertime. There's candles for different rooms, different purposes, different occasions to be enjoyed outdoors, indoors, in the kitchen, in the bedroom. And it's all about actually being still and slowing down and looking after yourself, and some mindful well-being side of stuff, which of course links back to the mental health stuff.
And that's a wonderful place to finish. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, David. It's been great to chat to you.
And there was me talking to Cathy from Chilli Winters, from everything from candles to silver jewellery to the current state of the pandemic and hindsight. And I love these podcasts where we just get into a flow and we just talk, and they're absolutely brilliant. In a couple of weeks, there will be another podcast with Cathy, and we'll be talking about all things mental health and what she can suggest and things that can help you, and what to be aware of, both from a personal point of view and from a company point of view. And please check out the links if you're interested in candles. I will make sure the links to the websites are all in the descriptions. Thank you ever so much for listening. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. I love feedback. Have a great day, people. Thank you.